Thank you very much, Mr. Co-Chair, and thanks a lot for the organizers for inviting me. And I indeed take off where Michael ended in his conclusion first bullet. It said that EU regulation is in place, and I'll exemplify that through what has been done and is being done on REACH. Next slide, please. Very short outline. I'll give you some background, and then I'll say what we're doing on REACH. The background that I'm giving you is slightly different perspective, but just to show that the work on the endocrine disruptors was actually developed in parallel and in coordination with the development work on REACH. The REACH dates where things happened was 1996, first council discussion, 1998, first conclusions, 1999, second conclusions of council, 2001 white paper, 2003 commission proposal, it's not on the slides, 2006 was the political agreement, 2007 adoption. In parallel with that, we basically had the endocrine discussion starting in 1996 with the book Our Stolen Future, which kicked off the debate, and the first discussion on, in particular, a definition of an endocrine disruptor took place in 1996 in Weybridge. This was a WHO, EEA, European Commission sponsored workshop which came up with a definition. And in 1998 there was a parliamentary resolution. And then, next slide please, came the Commission strategy on endocrine disruptors in 1999. And I'm just saying this to say that there was an evolution, and we identified already back in 1999 a number of steps which needed to be undertaken to address endocrine disruptors, and those steps are exactly those which got implemented in REACH, and hopefully I'll be able to show you what some of those results are. If I could take the next slide, please. Here are just the two definitions of an endocrine disruptor, the one in Weybridge in 1996. I should say I had the pleasure of being in that workshop and discussing and developing that definition, where there was consensus across the board, independent of where anybody came from, whether they were scientists from one group, scientists from another group, industry experts, member state, or commission. This is what people ended up with. And if you take next slide, please, the WHO IPCS definition, then I dare to challenge you to spot the differences. The main one is that now the word mixture is in there as well, but the rest is more or less the same. Now, I gave you this introduction simply because this is the definition that the European Chemicals Agency, and hence we in REACH, are applying in a way whilst we await the actual criteria implementing this definition. Next slide, please. What we do in REACH are the three steps that Andreas nicely introduced, so I don't need to do that very much. I just need to say we have definitions, we have test methods, and then we try to do something. In the test methods area, what we do is we house, or REACH houses the accumulated test methods which can be used in REACH, but also are used by a lot of other pieces of legislation, like pesticides, biocides, and other areas. And what we've been doing is regularly, when OECD finishes a test method, and this includes those on endocrine disruptors, then we include them routinely into what's called the test method regulation. Now, the inclusion into the test method regulation in itself does not trigger legal requirements to use them, but it means that that test method is available in the European Union to be used and makes part of the mutual acceptance of data, which is a recognized system worldwide. And we have included now the test methods, screening test methods adopted by the OECD for endocrine disruptors, a number of the mechanistic studies, and just recently the extended one generation study, which also looks into a number of specific endocrine disruption endpoints. REACH then also generates information, and now that we have included the extended 1Gen into the test method regulation, we've also now included it into the information requirements, so we are now starting to use it. So Andreas was saying we haven't implemented them yet, but we are now just at the tipping point of starting to actually implement it as a standard information requirement for all substances in Europe up above 100 tons. And under a routine called substance evaluation in REACH, a number of substances are being identified for their endocrine disrupting potential, and testing proposals or testing being mandated for those substances. So we are both implementing the test methods which do come out of OECD, and we are starting to generate information which should enable us to apply the definition and the criteria when they come. Next slide, please. What we've also done in a REACH context, and here I speak fully under the control of ECHA, because these bullets are, or the first bullet is ECHA's own job. ECHA has already identified, using the WHO definition, 5 substances as being endocrine disruptors for the environment. They've also identified 1 substance as being an endocrine disruptor according to the WHO definition for human health. This is DEHP, but due to disagreement in the relevant committee of ECHA as to some of the technical interpretations of one of the articles in REACH, that has landed on our table here in the Commission, and we internally are currently working out whether we follow the ECHA agreement on the identification and and figuring out what our interpretation of the relevant article is, in order to see whether we too would identify or not DEHP as an endocrine disruptor under REACH. Furthermore, we have a few years ago developed at a high level so-called roadmap for identifying substances of very high concern under REACH, and we're now implementing that roadmap, and this includes a systematic approach to identifying all endocrine disruptors by 2020. And for that purpose, but also to help the identification of endocrine disruptors under the authorization system, ECHA has established an expert group which has already met 4 times, and they are basically screening all the registered substances in order to identify potential endocrine disruptors, either feeding them into the authorization process, the formal identification process, or recommending further testing. Last slide, please. And then on the risk management side, the next steps after the identification of substances as endocrine disruptors is then a decision on whether or not they should enter into the authorization system. That is therefore a dynamic process which currently is ongoing. ECHA first has to prioritize these substances, and we in the Commission need then to confirm if such a substance is to be subject to authorization. And as always, the restrictions route is always open for Member States or the Commission to ask ECHA to develop a restrictions proposal should there be a risk which needs EU control. Thank you very much.